first position it in the contradiction of the concept that we face today in society, and then position it in the civic outworking of it. I was at Ohio State University doing an open line radio program with Hugh Ross, the astrophysicist. And a woman phoned rather angrily, and let me pause and say, I understand why they feel this way. Because I have been on other ends of the position where if people did not understand me, that sense of pent-up frustration, and I know why she was upset. The only thing is none of us had ever mentioned the issue. She brought up the abortion issue. And she said, all you Christians are about is that hidden agenda, and you're just using all of this in order to accomplish that. I said, ma'am, we haven't even talked about it. I don't know why you say that. And the idea of a hegemony and all was introduced. I said, you have just brought in a subject matter that is not even being addressed in the open forums, because to me that's as serious as it is. It's a symptomatic issue of the ideas that we live with. We wrestle with the ideas. The particulars and the symptoms are many, not just one. I said, but seeing you brought this question up, I'd like to ask you a question. I said, why are you for it? And she said, it is my moral right. I said, all right, then respond to me this way. I said, many times I stand on a university campus and somebody gives me an illustration like this. A plane is in midair, suddenly it crashes, seemingly for no reason, it explodes, and strangely 10 people live, 70 people die. It's an act of God, according to the proverbial usage. And people say to me, what kind of a God is this? 70 die, 10 live. God is immoral in doing that. I said, now can you help solve this conundrum for me? If indeed that is an act of God, and 70 die and 10 live, and He made that choice for it to happen, you're calling His choice immoral. I said, when you have the opportunity to determine whether somebody lives within you or dies within you, you're calling it your moral right. I said, can you explain this conundrum for me? There was silence. We have to ask some very hard questions. I have written a paper that I'll be glad to present these options. There are only 4 possible options with what that child is in the mother's womb, as far as I know. That is something like it is a life and you don't know it. It is a life and you do know it. It is not a life and you don't know it. It is not a life and you do know it. Take those 4 options, and the best you can come out with is the possibility of criminal negligence, i.e., if you don't know where your 2-year-old boy is on a farm, would you go around with a pitchfork jamming it into a haystack, see if he's hiding there? Why? You would not want to risk hurting him. Now, having said that, the hardest thing for the Christian, and for me, I speak now personally, to me it's a very treasured thing that this life is so sacred and so vulnerable. It is not the mother's life, it is not the father's life. Geneticists tell you that. From the moment of that conception, this is a brand new entity. I do not know of geneticists anywhere who have said this is not a life. This is a completely different entity. I think what the world has to answer is, what are we going to do if that is a life and we are taking them up by the millions? What are we going to do if that is indeed a life and we are destroying them by the millions? Now, somebody can then turn around and say, Ravi, this is a pluralistic society. You have no right to impose your ethic upon me. I accept that statement in 99 out of 100 times. Where I have the quandary is this: if indeed my responsibility in life is to guard the sanctity of another life, ought not I to do my best to protect that life too? How do we go about in a democratic society? Here is the hardest way for us to accept, I'm afraid. It is this: to change society from top down is always a temptation. But to change society the slow way of changing the hearts of men and women so that they will change the laws of the land is the way Christ has, I think, operated in history. As difficult as that is, and I know it's a divisive statement, I will do everything in my power to talk to every human being about the sanctity of that life. But I also recognize in a society where the person next to me has that freedom to make his or her decision, Jesus moved through the slow way of rebuilding a life. That's why there were many societal issues he did not directly address, because he wanted to change the heart of man. And let us never forget, he gave them a perfect law, and the country still went wild without a vision, went berserk. So that ultimately it is only the change of heart that can change society. You see, we can be very moral and still be morally lost. Jesus Christ did not come into this world to make bad people good. He came into this world to make dead people live. Those who are dead to God to be made alive to Him.